A lone cowboy stands tall against the burning sun, dust swirling around his boots, his shadow stretching across the endless desert. That image doesn't just belong to any man, it belongs to John Wayne, a name that echoes through time as the heart and soul of Western movies. Known as the Duke, he wasn't just an actor, he was a symbol of strength, grit, and the wild American spirit. For over 50 years he brought cowboys to life on the big screen, making people believe in heroes who fought for what's right, even when the odds were stacked against them. His deep voice, steady walk, and piercing eyes turned every film into something unforgettable. But who was the man behind the hat? How did a quiet kid named Marion Morrison grow up to become the king of westerns? This isn't just a story about movies. It's about a legend who shaped how the world sees courage and honor. From his tough early days to his final ride into the sunset, John Wayne's life is a tale worth telling, and it all starts right here. John Wayne didn't come into the world as a cowboy hero ready to ride across the screen. He started far from the spotlight, born Marion Robert Morrison on May 26, 1907, in a small town called Winterset, Iowa. His family wasn't rich. His dad worked as a pharmacist and times were tough, so they moved to California hoping for a better life. Growing up, young Marion was a big kid, strong and athletic, and he loved playing football. He even earned a spot on the team at the University of Southern California, dreaming of a future in sports. But that dream crashed when a shoulder injury ended his football days, leaving him unsure of what to do next. With no clear path, he took a summer job at a movie studio, carrying props and running errands for directors. It wasn't glamorous, hauling furniture and fetching coffee, but it put him close to the action. That's where he caught the eye of people who mattered, like director John Ford, a man who'd later change his life. Back then, he wasn't John Wayne yet, he was just Marion, a hard-working guy taking any chance he could get. Studios started giving him small parts in silent films, little roles where he barely spoke, but he kept showing up, learning the ropes. Money was tight, and the work was slow. Sometimes he'd go months without a job. Still, he didn't give up. He had no idea those long hard days were building something bigger, something that would turn a college kid with a busted shoulder into a name everyone would know. It wasn't fast or easy, but every step, every struggle, was pushing him toward the moment when he'd step out of the shadows and into history. Everything changed for John Wayne in 1939, when a single movie turned him from a struggling actor into a star who'd never be forgotten. That movie was Stagecoach, and it wasn't just another job. It was the moment he stepped into the boots of the Ringo Kid, a tough, quiet cowboy with a gun and a heart. Director John Ford, who'd known Wayne for years from those early studio days, took a big chance on him. Back then, Wayne wasn't a big name. He'd done dozens of small roles in cheap westerns, but nothing had stuck. Ford saw something special though, and gave him the lead in a story about a dangerous stagecoach ride through wild country. When that film hit theaters, people couldn't look away. Wayne's tall frame, steady voice, and calm strength made him a hero they believed in. That's when he really became John Wayne, a name that started to mean something. They say his nickname the Duke came from a dog he loved as a kid, but after Stagecoach, it fit the man he'd become, someone who ruled the screen like royalty. From there he didn't stop. He teamed up with Ford again and again, making movies like Ford Apache and She Wore a Yellow Ribbon, each one building his fame. Another big hit, Red River in 1948, showed he could play a hard man with a soft side, driving cattle across miles of tough land. People loved him, not just for the action, but for the way he made them feel safe, like he could handle anything. By the end of the 1940s, he wasn't just an actor anymore. He was the face of westerns, a guy who turned dusty trails and gunfights into stories that stuck with you. Stagecoach was the spark, but what came after lit the fire that carried him to the top. John Wayne didn't just play cowboys, he became the kind of hero people think of when they picture the Wild West, a man who stood tall no matter what came his way. His best films show why he's still the king of westerns, starting with The Searchers in 1956, where he played Ethan Edwards, a guy hunting for his niece after she's taken by raiders. That role wasn't all about shooting and riding, it showed a darker, angrier side, a man wrestling with pain and revenge, proving Wayne could do more than just look tough. Then there's True Grit in 1969, where he took on Rooster Cogburn, a one-eyed marshal with a big attitude and a bigger heart. That part won him an Oscar, his first and only, because he made you laugh, cheer and feel every step of that rough journey. Another big one, The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance in 1962, put him as Tom Doniphan, a rancher who steps aside for the greater good, showing that real strength isn't always loud. What tied all these roles together was how he carried himself, 6'4", broad shoulders, and a slow steady walk that said he wasn't scared of anything. His voice, deep and gravelly, could quiet a room or start a fight, and he used it like a weapon. He wasn't perfect, his characters had flaws, tempers and doubts, but that's what made them real. Wayne brought a mix of toughness and fairness to every story, like he was born to wear that hat and carry that gun. He didn't just act, he lived those parts, making you believe a man could face down outlaws, save a town, or ride off alone and still come out on top. Directors loved him for it, and audiences couldn't get enough. His westerns weren't just movies, they were lessons in standing up straight and doing what's right. That's why, even now, when you think of a cowboy, it's his shadow you see against the sunset, the one who defined what a hero could be. John Wayne wasn't locked into just westerns. He stepped out of the saddle to show he could handle all kinds of stories, proving his talent went deeper than cowboy boots and dusty trails. Take The Quiet Man in 1952, where he played an American boxer who moves to Ireland and falls in love. It's full of green hills, fistfights and a softer side of Wayne that surprised people used to seeing him with a gun. Then there were war movies like The Longest Day in 1962, where he took on tough military roles, standing shoulder to shoulder with soldiers, his voice barking orders like he'd been in the army himself. He loved America, and that came through loud and clear. Whether he was waving the flag or talking about freedom, you could feel it in his bones. Off-screen he was just as big. He had strong opinions about politics, sometimes stirring up arguments, but he never backed down from saying what he thought. People didn't always agree with him, especially in the 1960s and 70s when his views clashed with a changing world, but they respected his fire. That grit wasn't fake, it was who he was, a guy who lived big, laughed loud, and filled every room he walked into. He smoked cigars, loved the outdoors, and carried himself like he was still on some wide-open range. Even when he wasn't shooting bad guys, that larger-than-life spirit stuck with him, making him more than an actor. He was a force, someone you couldn't ignore on set or off it. John Wayne's mark on the world goes far beyond the movies he made. He became a piece of America itself, a name that still means something decades after his last ride. Winning that Oscar in 1970 for True Grit was a big moment, not just because it was his first, but because it showed everyone, even the doubters, that he was more than a cowboy actor. He was the real deal, a guy who'd earned his place among the greats. Other actors, like Clint Eastwood, took what Wayne started and ran with it, building their own tough guy styles off the path he carved. Directors and stars who worked with him couldn't stop talking about his power. John Ford called him a natural, and friends said he had a way of making every scene better just by being there. His last film, The Shootist in 1976, hit hard. He played an old gunfighter facing the end, and with cancer wearing him down in real life, it felt like he was saying goodbye. He passed away in 1979, but that wasn't the end. His movies kept playing, his face stayed on posters, and his star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame still draws crowds. He turned into a symbol of grit and pride, the kind of man people point to when they talk about what America stands for, even if some argue about his old-school ways. Today you can see him in every western that comes out, every hero who stares down trouble without blinking. Kids who never saw him alive know his name, and fans still argue over which film was his best. That's the thing about John Wayne. He didn't just make movies, he built a legacy that's as tough as the characters he played, one that's still standing tall long after the credits rolled. John Wayne's story doesn't end with his last film or his final breath. It lives on in every dusty trail, and every brave stand he brought to the screen, a legacy that keeps him the legendary icon of westerns. He once said, "Courage is being scared to death, but saddling up anyway," and that line sums him up. A man who faced fear, fought hard, and left something behind that time can't erase. From a kid hauling props to a giant who shaped movies, he showed what it means to keep going, no matter what. His voice still echoes, his shadow still stretches across the plains, and his films still pull you in, whether it's your first time watching or your 100th. So grab a chance to sit down with The Searchers, True Grit, or any of his classics. Let them take you back to a world he made his own. Share your favorite in the comments, tell someone about the Duke, or just watch him ride off into that sunset one more time. John Wayne's not gone, he's waiting for you to find him again.